Guys, we've been talking about the importance of men doing difficult things and telling difficult stories. I've got one more story for you today in this series. I want to tell you the story about the time that the government warned me not to go to the border of the Congo Republic, but I went anyway. Okay. So let's go get a coffee first, and then I can tell you this story about when I didn't obey what the government told me to do. The story starts back in 2013, where I was in East Africa and I made friends with a guy called Rock. And then a couple of years later, I was back in Uganda where he lives, and that's where our story takes us today. So I started building this friendship with this guy, Rock, and he was telling me about the orphanages that he was building and churches and other things like this, trying to help out poor people. And he invited me to come and visit and help him out. So I decided I would go and I would take the trip and go to Uganda to help out my friend. So getting back to this friend of mine, Rock, legend of a guy who builds orphanages and does amazing things helping the poor people in Africa. And that was basically why I was going to Uganda in the first place. So I made the decision to go to Uganda to help out. And then from there I had to get all of my documents together and to find out whether it was a good place to go. And so I went to the Australian government travel website. And right there in big bold print is warning to all Australians, do not go anywhere near the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And I knew that my friend, his hometown was a place called Bwera in Uganda, which is less than 5 kilometers from the border. And so I had a decision to make. And the decision I made was I wanted to go help my friend, and I was going to go in spite of that warning. So that was it. I made my decision to go to Uganda to go and see my friend, help him with his orphanage and his church. And that started a long plane travel from Sydney, Australia, all the way to Entebbe Airport in Uganda. And it took forever. I remember the flight, we basically went from Sydney to Singapore, and then I flew into Johannesburg in South Africa. And from Johannesburg, another 6 or 7 hours flight up to Entebbe in Uganda. And we still weren't finished the travel to get there at that stage. And so after this massive, long international flight, I was finally in Uganda. But then that's when the story really got started. I remember going from Entebbe Airport to catch this next plane, this tiny little plane actually, called a Cessna Caravan. And I'll never forget sitting in this Cessna Caravan, which only seated 6 people, by the way, and sitting so close to the pilot that I could reach out and touch his shoulder from where I was sitting. I'd never been in a plane like that before. And we took off from Entebbe Airport. It was only about a 45-minute flying time, but we stopped about 4 times to drop people off and pick people up. It was like doing the milk run. It was pretty crazy. Anyway, we finally nearly got to the airport, and I remember looking out the window and trying to locate, where is this airport? Where is this place we're supposed to be landing? Because I couldn't see any real airport. And so I remember looking for the airport in the grass strip, and the pilot gets on his 2-way radio and he calls down to the ground to the man who's sitting in a 40-year-old Land Cruiser. And the pilot basically had to do a fly around because on the grass runway on the strip was about 40 buffalo who wouldn't get out of the way so that we could land the plane. And so we went and did a big loop, a big fly around, waiting for basically the guy on the ground to scream up and down in his Land Cruiser and scatter these buffaloes so we could actually get the plane on the ground. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'll get a takeaway almond latte, please.
No problem. Is that one today?
That's it, thanks.
Sweet.
All right, coffee. Now we can finish our story. Come on. So I'm sitting there on this plane, this Cessna Caravan, able to reach out and touch the pilot's shoulder, can see the whole cockpit, and I'm looking out the window and I can see buffalo all over the runway, thinking, how on earth are we going to get this thing on the ground? Little did I know that was only the start of the adventure of what was actually going on this trip to Uganda. And where we had landed basically was like a safari game park, because what we were told later is that the area where I was going to work and help my friend was actually so dangerous for Westerners to go into that they didn't want me staying in his town of Bwera. And so we got driven in this old Land Cruiser off the airstrip past the buffalo, and then basically from there they took us inside the game park and said to us all, whatever you do, don't go outside the game park. And they had these massive hedges. And of course, we're like, well, why do we not go outside the game park? And they said, because there's big cats everywhere. And we have had one tourist taken and killed many years ago. So that was enough incentive for us not to leave the game park. We did what we were told there and stayed in place. And so we finally got checked into this game park, and it had already been an incredible experience by that stage. And we received another warning about the wildlife after the warning about the big cats. So we've been fairly warned about the wildlife, or at least we thought we had. I get into my room, and the gentleman who took me to my room, he says, listen, you can go outside inside the game park, but whatever you do, don't go too close to the edge just over there. He was pointing about 20 meters away, because he said just down there is a hippopotamus infested river. Sure enough, I put my bags on the bed and I can hear all these grunting noises, and I go outside to explore, look over the edge of this little cliff edge, and right below where I'm staying and sleeping is about 30 massive hippopotamus swimming and splashing around in the river. So it had been an incredible experience. I still haven't even got to this township called Bwera to help my friend. Sydney, Singapore, Johannesburg, Entebbe Airport. Long flight in the Cessna Caravan, dodging buffaloes, being warned about big cats and hippopotamus. It was an unbelievable journey just to get there. And then the next morning, finally the time came to actually go out and visit my friend out at his hometown and see what was going on with his building program and all the rest of it. Anyway, the driver came to pick me up, and I never forget, as we left the game park, we were driving down this dirt track. He told me it was about a 1 hour drive to get to the township. And as we're driving down the dirt track, he suddenly stops, and I look at him and I ask, what's wrong? Is everything okay? He says, I just have to wait because I think I saw an elephant to the side of the road. And so sure enough, we wait 2 minutes, and out of the bushes comes this pack of elephants, maybe 9 or 10 in the family, with the massive bull, alpha bull male at the front of the pack. But they don't just walk across the road, they stop in the middle of the road. And so I say to him, what do we do now? He says, we sit and wait, because in our country, we are not allowed to move the elephants on. We have to wait for them until they move on. It's like, oh, okay, well, in my head, I'm thinking we've got a schedule to keep, and now I'm going to have the greatest excuse of all time for being late, that I had to wait for the elephants to get out the way. Then he hits reverse and starts backing up in a hurry, and he says to me, I think I better give a bit more space, because occasionally the bull elephants get cranky and they will run towards our vehicles. And he said, I need to give enough time to turn around. So this was like the wildlife adventure of a lifetime. Finally, after all of this travel, I get to Bwera, right out in Western Uganda, to see my friend. And as we get out of the car and he shows me around the town and points me around the town, he says, whatever we do, we cannot take you beyond that building across the street there. And I said, why is that? And he points to some hills, maybe only a few hundred meters across in the background. He says, because just behind those hills, that is the border of the Congo Republic, and we shouldn't even have you this close. And so that really gave me the massive reality check of how deep into Africa I actually was at that moment in time, and how far that travel had been. And I guess that really brings me to the question in our story of men doing difficult things. I've got to ask myself the question, well, why did I do that? The answer is pretty simple. It's the same thing that lives in all of us as men. We want to make a difference. We want to contribute. We want to be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves. And When I got the invitation to go there and help my friend with his plan for orphanages and churches in his hometown, which by the way was an extremely poor scene to discover. And I was used to that because I'd been to Uganda before, and my wife and I had sponsored 3 Ugandan children for nearly 10 years by this time. But I saw the poverty in the town, and it was an invitation that I couldn't say no to. I wanted to be there and contribute and make a difference, and really that's the core of why I did it. And as far as what did I learn? Well, what didn't I learn? It was an incredible experience of taking a long journey for a good reason, something that had purpose and meaning in it. But also beyond that, the idea that you actually can stretch yourself way outside of your comfort zone, flying in tiny planes that you haven't been in before, seeing wildlife up close, being warned about the real dangers of those animals and not to go near them. And then at the end of that adventure, to be struck by the extreme poverty and the closeness to a border of a country where I was warned by the Australian government website that Australian travellers should not go to. Was it worth it? 100% it was worth it. I'd do it all over again without a shadow of a doubt. So I really am urging through this story series, urging men, young and old, to not be afraid of difficult things, but rather embrace the reality that the journey of life involves doing difficult things. And they don't have to be the breaking of us. They can actually become part of the making of us. They are good for us. And that's the reason we got started on this whole story series. If you didn't have the chance yet to check out the original video that I filmed, the longer version of me reflecting on the Jordan Peterson quote about men doing difficult things, you can click on this screen right here to go to that video now and watch that, and you can see me explain that in full detail. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little short series on men doing difficult things, and I really hope to see you in another video real soon.